Welcome to the Michigan Runner Show. Join us each time as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great sport.
Hi, I'm Jenny McCafferty for the Michigan Runner, and we have a treat today. We are here with Jeanne Bocci, who's an absolute legend in Michigan running circles, and we're going to talk about some of the things she's been involved in. How are you doing, Jeanne?
I'm fine.
Good. When we're going to start with what really first put you on the map, which was race walking. And race walking is an unusual sport, and I want to know how you first got started on your way to becoming nationally ranked.
1964, year before I was married. I went up to the UP for my wedding shower at our church. And I was training for running, and Guts Clufford, who's made several Olympic teams back then, who is my age category, said, "Jeanne, I think you'd make a better walker than you do a runner." And I said, and I was doing some cross-country running in half miles, but remember, running was not in our public schools. Right? Yes. Yeah. So I says, well, okay, I'll try it. So my first race was on Belle Isle, and they corrected my form. And then I raced the Mackinac Bridge and happened to break Ron Laird, who was married to another woman who had won the Mackinac Bridge and set the record. And I broke her record by 6 minutes and won it. And Ron Laird, I think he's made 4 or 5, but he's got every national record. He is now retired also, in my age.
When you said they showed you the form, because it's different. It's not like regular walking. Who's they?
Well, Guts Clufford was my first race walking sort of coach. Jerry always coached me in running. And then, because he lived in Bloomfield Hills, he would walk from Bloomfield Hills to Wayne State when he was in getting his doctorate. Yes, for his workouts. That's why he was a 50K walker. Very nice, very close friend. Been in California now probably over 20 years.
When did you first realize you were pretty fast?
Running or walking? Well, because I won that, I would switch it. If I wanted to do a running race, I did that, and then Jerry worked with me on form quite a bit. He was still running, doing all his races running till he had Achilles tendon surgery and couldn't run anymore.
Well, you have some very interesting milestones, I guess I would call it. You did 50K walks, and you were on the list of the best ones as number 14, and then another year, number 24, number 26, number 32. You were ranked really right up there on that really long distance.
Yeah. I think I still have the world record for the 35K, and I wouldn't know my times, but my coach in the kitchen over there working would. And I did a couple of 50Ks, and if I was younger now, because they have a 50K in there, yeah, I would be up there with 3 of them. My time matched hers, the woman from the U.S. that made the world championship in the 50K.
Oh, well, it's really remarkable because you also still hold, I believe, the American record in the 1500, which is a lot shorter. And it was 6 minutes, 40 seconds and change. And think about a 5-minute mile when you're running, or a 4-minute mile when you're running. How do you do that? That's incredible.
I'd like to do it again. Yes, that was a tribute. That was the AAU Olympics trials. AAU was our governing sport when I first started it. And then it became TAC, then now USA TNF. But so all of our events were governed by the AAU rules.
Mm-hmm. And in 1972, you qualified for the trials, but that's as far as it went. Tell us about that story.
I won the Won the trials, and then we had, exhibition races in Europe. In '77, I asked my husband if I started working hard, if he would watch the 2 children we had, that the World Championships for walking was in Borås, Sweden. And my father's from Sweden, but of course he's been deceased a long time. And my mother was Norwegian and Finnish, so I'm all Suomalainen.
That's where the blonde comes from.
Oh, yes. And so I wanted to make the team so I could say I went to the country of my fathers. And I did, in the 10,000 meters. I was 3rd from the U.S. They only took 3. No, they took 4 in the 5K, 4 in the 10K. But 2 of the 10K went to the 5K. So I was the U.S. top, and I finished 3rd in the World Championships. Wow. Almost got 2nd.
I mean, but 3rd, that's on the podium. Yes. Yeah. That's really amazing. And it's interesting also that those were in the early years when they had this strange idea that women couldn't do anything longer than 800 meters. Or they used the old men's tale that your uterus would fall out or some such thing.
I actually had a young girl in the high school when I was married and had the 2 babies. I worked with Lincoln Park Parquet Girls, AAU club. So I would drive here from Grosse Pointe 2-3 nights a week, brought the babies, put them in the playpen, but then the mothers that were there, they were my babysitters for the 2 hours that I would coach. But I did have one of my girls' mother tell her that, this is before I had children, that she had to quit running and walking with me because I don't have any children, and that's because I've damaged my uterus. And I was just livid because I'm in the health field.
Can you believe that stuff?
Oh, I cannot, yes. And she did.
Oh. Well, so you're in the USA Track and Field Masters Hall of Fame for race walking.
Yes, I have that too.
So you have so many plaques, you don't know where to find them, right?
No, I took everything down so the nativity sets fit.
The Olympic trials themselves were pretty interesting, but you also won the race walking division of the New York City Marathon. Do you remember that?
That was the highlight.
Okay.
I was so nervous before that race. I'm thinking of it now. I just cried and cried. And I took off, and I never saw anybody again. I just raced. And actually, that was a pretty good time. My best race walking marathon is 4:11.
Ooh. Wow.
Race walking.
4:11. Mm-hmm. Race. I bet.
And
some of us can't even run that fast. Come on. That's amazing.
Yeah, 4:11. Because my running was like, 4:17. My running is 3:11 for a marathon. And I was never going to make a marathon national team. You had to be under 3 hours even when I was back in my big running days, 100 miles a week. So, that's why I said I would switch it and then race walk when the nationals were coming up. But you had to do more walking because of technique. So that took priority in my training for years.
Well, it's amazing to think about the fact that you were really accomplished in the shorter distances as well as the marathon, a longer distance, not only that, but the 50K. How do you pace yourself? How do you learn to pace yourself at such different distances?
Well, Jeanne Bocci, being my coach, would got me track books and training books to read. And we sort of followed the technique of how many miles, for the 50-miler that I did. My first 50-miler was running, that was 7:02. So you're looking at 2 3:30 marathons back to back. And that included 40-mile workouts. So one girlfriend would pick me up at 5, and then I'd train with another person for 10 miles, then another person. But Jerry was always taking care of the kids, so he would, this is before we had water bottles and that. He would take just styrofoam cups and put my water behind the bushes where I knew with saran wrap on them, so I had my water out there.
Where were you
Well, mostly from here. I would go all the way to Shook Road. I think that was my 20-mile mark.
Are these sidewalks, streets?
Well, basically, when you're on Lakeshore, we're on sidewalks, yes.
Okay.
And as soon as I can get, now in the neighborhood, we just use the streets.
Okay. Because there's not as many cars or better service?
Yeah, if you ever did the scientific testing of road surface, sidewalks are very hard on runners' knees and legs, okay? That's why the road surface.
Yeah.
And you can't argue, though, if your community has a law or that you have to be on the sidewalk. We don't have that anymore.
Oh, okay.
Except they don't want you on, I wouldn't go on Lakeshore on the road.
Okay.
You know, you're looking at 40-mile traffic an hour.
So, if you had to pick your favorite distance for race walking, what would it be?
Oh, right now I would have to say the 50K, but my 20Ks were pretty good too. But I was better at the distance. I was just a stronger athlete, I should say.
Well, speaking of talking, one of the things we like to ask people is if you're training with people, who would be, of all the people in the walking, running community, would you choose to go on a training run with you, say 2 or 3?
Name-wise? I'll put in categories, male and female. Okay. My female friends, and I always said to them, this is the greatest thing we can do because we don't have to go to a therapist. Because we could both dump out, or if there was 3 or 4 of us, we always listened to the tales. There weren't many women runners when I started running. And I ran on Belle Isle, and my gurus were all in the professional field, and they were just so nice to me. The first time I did a 12-mile, they lifted me up on the table and clapped because I had done 12 miles. I was training for my first marathon, Boston. Yeah. And it was fun running with them because, like one in particular, Dr. Coyle was a dentist. He's used to telling funny jokes to his patients. So we got to listen to his jokes and all the different stories. And they were really my helpers when I would be running. But I had to stop to go bathroom more than they did. Yeah, and like I said, no other women were running back then. So we would meet in the morning 5 days a week, Saturday and Sunday on Belle Isle, on Grosse Pointe Boulevard, and I would drive there at 5:30, and that's how we got our 7 and 8 miles in. Wow. But I could do that, and then Jerry had to go to work, and then I actually started teaching, and I took a night class in a vocational dental school, and I started teaching full-time in 1973. Wow.
So we've been talking to Jeanne Bocci about her storied race walking career, and we're going to move on a little bit later in another show to talk about marathons. Thank you, Jeanne.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.